All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting day in mathematics. Woo, woo. How's everybody doing? Good? Yeah? Day 2 going all right? It's funny, you're like getting warm out there, Mr. Q. So warm-up number 2 is on your screen. On the screen. Number 1 says copy the lesson and the home play of the day. You will do this every day. And we're going to get into the lesson in a little bit, and also I'm going to give you the home play in a little bit. Number 2 says simplify, -5 plus 1 plus -3 plus 6 plus -2. And number 3 reads simplify, 6 plus -4 plus 3 plus 2 plus -3 plus 4. And last but not least, it says number 4, get a paper ready for Cornell notes, and there's a format right there. So get started with the warm-up, and we'll get going in a little bit. All right, so I still see some of you working on the warm-up. Some of you are already done. Those of you that are already done, you have the packet in front of you, which is the syllabus. Those of you that are watching the video online, make sure when you come back, ask me for a packet. So I'm going to give you guys some time to read through the syllabus. Make sure you get familiar with all the weights that I'm going to use for grading. Read through the classroom requirements and all that. Okay, I'll give you some time for that. So in a summary form, what the packet says, number 1, don't cheat, right? Number 2, behave, or else there's consequences for that. And number 3, the processes that we're going to go through throughout the day here in the class, and my expectations in regards to what you need to do here in class. They're right there in the classroom, Mr. Q's classroom rules and such, okay? So make sure you get that signed and bring it back tomorrow. I just need that page back tomorrow, okay? All right, set that aside, please. And let's go to the warm-up really quick before we move on. And it says warm-up number 2, copy the lesson and home play of the day. So we're going to work on the lesson in a little bit, the home play of the day as well. I'm going to give you that. But right now we're focusing on number 2 and number 3. Before I go over them, I want you to share with your neighbors, see what they got for numbers 2 and number 3. Do that right now, please. All right, so I'm going to go over number 2 and number 3. For those of you that have been with me before, it's going to seem very familiar. I have 2 methods that I actually show students in order to approach these kind of expressions. And here they go. I'm going to start with number 2. For number 2, it says simplify. It's an expression. The first thing I teach everyone is to scan through the entire expression to see if there's addition all the way through. Okay, let me see. Addition, yes, 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 yes. Once that is true and you have addition all the way through, now we can combine stuff that are the same. So I'm going to combine like terms. That's what we call it. So what is the same? All the negatives. -5 and -3, that's -8. And -2, that's what? -10. Now that we have all the negatives, I'm going to combine the positives. So I have 1 and I have 6, so that's what? +7. We're going to get into some of the properties that we need for this to simplify, and at the end we simplify. -10 plus 7 is -3. Hopefully it's coming back, yes? All right, that's the first method. The second method is very similar. I'm going to do the same for number 3. I'm going to scan it to make sure there's addition all the way throughout. Yes, 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 and yes. However, this time, instead of combining stuff, I'm going to look for opposite numbers and scratch them out. Do we have any opposite numbers? Yeah, -4 and +4. They cancel. What else? 3 and -3. And what do we have left? These 2 right here, which are positive, so that means we end up with 8. You're like, what? I know, right? Those are the 2 methods that I usually teach, and I need your brain to kind of like start developing that or those concepts and skills. So like that, it's easier to absorb some of the math that we're going to be doing throughout the year, okay? That's just a quick review, if you want to call it. All right, so far so good, yeah? All right, I want you to look at the Cornell note. One of the handouts, get that in front of you. I want to make sure we understand the components of that sheet. Now, you're going to be able to write on it today, but after today, when I ask you to create a Cornell note, it needs to look like that. That's what I want to go over today, okay? First, if you notice at the top, there's a blank rectangle. You guys see that? That's where you're going to write the title of the lesson. And we'll get to that in a little bit. If you notice at the bottom left, it says what? Objective. So when I read the objective, that's where you're going to write your objective for the day. Now, in the objective, remember that there's a big idea for the day, or the main concept. The main concept goes here in the center of the prayer model. So far so good? Yes? Okay? And that's how we fill that in. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay? Now, the purpose of today, I'm going to start the lesson. I won't finish the lesson. I'm probably only going to get to half the lesson today. But I want to make sure that we know how to interact paper and Nearpod in our Chromebooks. So like that, we are able to see how that's going to work in the session. Okay? So let me advance this. So underneath your warm-up, where you did your warm-up, I want you to copy the agenda for today. Agenda reads warm-up number 2. And then it says number sets and expressions. Well, guess what? That's the title of the lesson. Does anybody know, or does everybody know where to write that? Yeah, it goes at the top of your Cornell notes. What are we looking at for the lesson? Number sets and expressions. That go at the top. The next thing is the home plea for tonight. Tonight you only have 8 problems to simplify expressions. Only 8 problems. Notice that when I say only, it makes it sound very little, right? Pretty good. And at the end, we just adjourn and we're done. So notice the flow of the session. We started with a warm-up. We went to the agenda. And now we're moving forward. What is the next thing that I look for? The next thing that I look for is the home play of the night before. Get that in front of you, please. That's what I assigned last night. Okay? Now, how is this going to work? On Nearpod, you're going to show me some of those answers, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But before I move on, for those of you watching the video online, write this code down for the session on Nearpod, where you can move the slides on your own and just follow along for the lesson. Your synchronous session code is DYG5T. DYG5T. This is for those that are watching online. Those of you that are here, I'm going to give you a new code. Okay? All right, so we should be right here. All right, so your screen should look like this. Yes? All right, so look what I'm going to do. I'm going to advance this screen, and on yours it's still going to look the same, except for at the bottom it's going to have a toolbar. Here it goes. I advance your screen, and at the bottom you have a toolbar. Do you see it? Okay, for those of you that are on an iPad, I want you to tap where the little lock is at, so you can lock the toolbar, so it can stay there. Those of you on Chromebooks, this is what I want you to do. I want you to tap on the letter T at the bottom of the toolbar. That's the tool, a text tool. And you're going to type in the answers for the home play. I only want answers. I don't want you to do the work. You already have the work, yes? For example, let me go back to my PowerPoint. So for part A, 17 and negative 2, you need to show me how many answers? 4. So you're going to type in S for sum, and then you're going to give me the number, what you got for the answer. D for difference, then you're going to type the answer. P for product, then the answer. And Q for quotient, and then the answer. Do that for each of the pairs. If you want to switch colors every time, that's fine. So I'll give you some time to do that. Those of you that are watching online and you're advancing the slide, advance the slide till you get the toolbar underneath. and I want you to do the same and follow along as we're doing here in class. Do that right now. I'll give you some time. Go. Okay, once again, those of you that are submitting your home play here in class, continue doing so. Those of you that are doing it online, remember, your asynchronous session code for Nearpod is DYG5T, DYG5T. All right, and as you guys finish submitting your work, after you're done and you press submit, reminder, material that you need for this class, your subject notebook has to be graph rules because we're going to be graphing a lot. Pencil, highlighters, 4-color pens. Once again, you can find those in any store, and I'm going to assign a book. We're working on getting those over here. And for tonight, you only have 8 problems for home plate. I'm going to leave them there on the screen. So as soon as you're done submitting that, copy that on your paper somewhere, and I'll give you some time for that. So. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and forward your screen so you can see the home plate on your screen. You guys see it right there? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the session for today. So get your Cornell notes. At this point, I would say get a Cornell note ready, but for today, you have the handout that I gave you, so use that. So let's get started. On your screen, you should have the objective. You guys see it? And it reads, I can simplify algebraic expressions. I can simplify algebraic expressions. I can simplify algebraic expressions. Where does that go on your Cornell note? At the bottom left. You guys see that? Yes? Yes, Mr. Q. All right, good. So write that in there, please. At the bottom left. Now the question asked, it says, what is the concept for today? Notice that it's in green. And so if I look at my objective in green, what is the main idea for today? Algebraic expressions. So where do we write that in our Cornell note? We write it in the oval that's inside of the Freyer model. So write it in there, please. What do we write in there? Algebraic expressions. So I'm going to show you on my screen over here. Hopefully by now you already finished copying the home plate. Once again, what's in green is algebraic expression. That's our main idea, and it goes on the oval of the Freyer model. Write it in there, and we're going to fill that in tomorrow. Like I said, we're not going to get completely through the session. I just want us to get familiar with all the components. Are we there so far? All right. So, the title of the lesson was in the agenda. Is that correct? The objective goes on the bottom left, and the main idea or the main concept goes in the center. What are we doing with algebraic expressions? We are simplifying. We are simplifying, okay? All right, so for this next portion of the lesson, I'm going to do a quick review, and I want you guys to just pay attention. And what do I ask you to do? I usually say writing utensils down, which means leave everything on your desk and don't have hands on any electronic devices. I need your full attention. Now, guys, Algebra 2, like I said, it's a little bit challenging, but I started off fairly slow, and I ease you into the course, but I need your attention. Please, pretty please. So when I ask you to put your writing utensils down, put them down, and I go through the explanation. When I ask you to copy, then I give you time to copy. Does that make sense? All right, so here we go. So like that, you don't have that anxiety of trying to copy everything as I'm speaking. Okay? So eyes on the screen. Here we go. So we're going to start with expressions. Expressions, there's one thing we cannot do in expressions. One thing we cannot do. What can't we do? We cannot solve expressions. Let me repeat that again. We cannot solve expressions. And I'm going to clarify that in a little bit because some of you in the past when you made mistakes in mathematics is because you didn't understand all the components of expressions. So here we go. What are the 3 things that we can do in expressions? We can translate expressions, we can evaluate expressions, and we can simplify expressions. That is the process that we take when we're simplifying expressions. Now, Let me give you an example, and once again, you're not copying this. This is just for review, okay? Let's say I gave a statement, and the statement goes as this. A number plus 23. That's just an expression, okay? What I'm going to do next, I'm going to translate that. I'm going to translate that into symbols. So, what is it that I need to translate? Well, how do I write a number? I'm going to use a variable. I'm going to use the variable q. What is the operation? The operation here is plus. And what is the other symbol? 23, Michael Jordan. So far so good? Yes? That's what we call translating. Next, I'm going to evaluate that expression that I just translated. How do we do that, Mr. Q? Well, in order to evaluate, somebody has to give you the value of the variable already ahead of time. So like that, you don't have to solve anything. So that means they need to tell you what Q stands for. Q is equal to 10. Now that they give you the value, now we're going to evaluate. So here we go. Instead of Q, what do I write? 10. And then I bring down the plus 23. Is it making sense? Yes? Once again, we translate it into symbols. From there, we evaluate once I give you the value of the variable, because we're not solving anything. And lastly, we're going to simplify it. What does simplification mean? It just means you compress it as much as you can. So I take this, can I compress that a little bit more? Yes. That becomes what? 33. That's the process of simplifying expressions. One thing that you need to notice, look up to the screen. This one, and this one do not have equal signs. Is that correct? They also do not have inequality symbols. That is why we cannot solve anything. That's the main reason. Now, let me show you a mistake that some of you made in the past. I'm going to do that right here. Let's say your teacher gave you this, Q plus 23, and they said, evaluate that given whatever value they gave you. But maybe you didn't understand quite what evaluation and simplification means, and some of you started doing this. Oh, okay, I need to subtract 23, and then Q equals, well, guess what? This is incorrect. Why? Because the expression doesn't have any equal sign. We can't solve it. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Good refresher so far? Okay. So, turn your Cornell notes over. Copy this table in the back, please. 2 columns. One of them reads real numbers. The other one reads imaginary numbers. On the real numbers, it has 2 other columns underneath there. And at the bottom, a big rectangle in green. Copy that, please. All right, so once again, in the back of your Cornell notes, you should have written this. For those of you that are watching online, remember when you come back, if you weren't here today, asking for the Cornell note format, I have it here. If you already know how to take notes, Cornell notes style, that's fine. You can do that on your own. All right, here we go. Y'all ready? Writing utensils down. I'm going to break this down so simple so you guys can see where we're going to end up at the end of the year in regards to the different numbers that we're going to look at. But I'm going to start you off with baby steps. Ready? Here you go. I'm going to start off with real numbers. Ready, Mia? Good? Yeah? Here it goes. Baby steps for real numbers. Real numbers is the group of numbers that we've been using ever since we were babies. Numbers that we use every day, from the code that I give you for the Wi-Fi to your student ID, those are real numbers. Now, real numbers are broken into 2 categories. They are rational or irrational. Don't copy this yet. I'll give you time in a little bit. Just pay attention. Rational, if I use the first part of the word, which is ratio, means fractions or decimal. What does that mean, Mr. Q? That any number that can be written as a fraction or a decimal is a rational. Now, within that group, there's 3 subgroups, and let's see if they come back to you pretty quick. The first one is the easiest one that we've used since we were in preschool, and you used to run and raise people to the swings, remember? They're called what? Counting numbers. I'll raise you 1, 2, 3. Those are counting numbers. After that, your teacher, I think it was in 3rd or 4th grade, they introduced you to one more number, which was 0. Once you add 0 to the counting numbers, those are known as whole numbers. So far, so good? From there, then we get to 5th grade, 4th, 5th grade, and then they introduce your favorite group of numbers. They are known as what? Integers. Integers are basically whole numbers and their opposites. So that means all the positives and all the negatives. All of these are known as rational because they can be written as how? Fraction or decimal. You're saying, Mr. Q, but 3 is not a fraction. Yes, it is. 3 over 1. What is 3 over 1? It's still 3. Can I combine some of these to write a fraction? Yeah, what is 2 divided by 3? 2/3. What is 2/3 in decimal? 0.6 repeating, right? Copy that. All right, as you're finishing up writing those down, let me give you another real number. Let's see. Let me get my handy-dandy tool, and I'm going to write another real number on this side. Once again, it's part of real numbers, and it's also a rational. Let me show you that number. Square root of 4. You're like, that looks kind of weird, Mr. Q. But if you say so, well, let me elaborate. To find the square root of any number, we need to find a number that when you multiply it times itself, how many times? Twice. It gives you the number that's in here, inside the radicand. All right. So, with that said, what number times itself gives us 4? 2. That's why this is a real number, because we can find it in one of those. It's here, and it's here. However, what other number times itself gives us positive 4? Negative 2 times negative 2, because negative times a negative is a positive. It's also here. That's why this one is a real number. So far, so good? Yes? Okay, and these are all rational because we can write them as fractions or decimals. Okay, let me show you numbers that are irrational. What are irrational? Numbers that cannot be written as fractions or decimals. The first obvious one that you've seen ever since elementary, hopefully, is pi. Write that in there, please. Pi never ends. Have you guys seen some videos of people that memorize the different digits of stuff? Yeah, it doesn't end. And what is pi? It's basically if you take the measurement of any can that you have in your pantry, of the circumference, and divide it by the distance from one side of the can to the other side of the can of the circumference, which is known as the diameter, it's going to give you a number close to 3.1415, and it continues going. You're like, what? I know, right? The other number that doesn't end is square root of 2. Write that in there, please, square root of 2. And once again, if you type that into a calculator, it doesn't end. The next number is known as phi. It's a weird symbol. It's kind of like an at, but like so. And phi is what we call the golden rule or the golden number. Now, for those of you that were with me, hopefully I already introduced it to you guys. Those of you that haven't, you ready for me to freak you out? Ready? Here we go. Phi is the golden rule that's found in all of us, in our DNA, in the length of our body, and it's a particular number. It's 1.618 ... and it continues going. You're like, what? Yeah, 1.618. What does that mean, Mr. Q? That if you look anywhere in this room, any figure that you see, it's usually rectangular. Anywhere. The majority, yes. Windows, doors, the screen that you're on, your phone, your ID. So if it's a rectangle, and if I was to ask you to take whatever of those pieces that I just said, and I said, measure the long side divided by the small side, it's going to give you a number close to 1.618 ... You're like, no. Oh, yes. That's what we call the golden rule. Let me go beyond that. What if I told you if you measured from the point of your fingers to your shoulder and divided measuring from the point of your fingers to your elbow, guess what number you're going to get? 1.6. You're like, Mr. Q, I'm telling you. So, that's 5. And the last number that we're going to get into once we get to logarithmic functions is E. E is a series that continues going, and we're going to look at that once we get to the second semester. Okay? And I'm going to stop right there, the video as well. Once again, you have your home plate for tonight. See how you do with that. So you that got an iPad, make sure you put it away and get it to charge. Have a good one, guys. Get those papers signed for your packet and bring it in tomorrow. Have a good one. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.